Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to take a journey, a deep dive into the most complex machine in the known universe, your brain, to answer a really fundamental question. How is a feeling, something so personal and powerful, actually born?
So, where does a feeling begin? Is it just some switch that gets flipped? A chemical that gets dumped into your system? Well, the answer, it turns out, is so much more dynamic and, frankly, way more incredible than you might imagine. It all begins with a storm.
That's right. Neuroscientists often describe the birth of an emotion as an electrical storm. It's this lightning-fast, incredibly complex event that pulls together everything from what you're seeing to your memories to how your body physically feels. And this metaphor, this idea of a storm, is really the key to understanding everything else we're about to talk about.
To really get a handle on the storm, we have to start smaller. We have to start with a single spark. We need to understand the language our brain uses to talk to itself. And that language, at its core, is pure electricity. The basic unit of this language, the simplest word, is called the action potential. It's a tiny little electrical impulse, a single spark. Now, just to give you a sense of the scale we're dealing with, your brain has about 86 billion neurons, every single one capable of firing off these sparks. That is more than 10 times the number of people on planet Earth, all talking at once. It creates a network of just staggering complexity. Now, neurons don't just talk. They change how they talk depending on what they need to say. Think of it like this. Tonic firing is the brain's baseline chatter, right? It's that background hum that's just saying, yep, everything's normal, status quo. But burst firing? That's the brain grabbing you by the shoulders and shouting, hey, pay attention to this. It's a rapid-fire, high-frequency signal that's only used for really important events. A burst of firing sends this super clear, high-fidelity signal that basically screams reward or threat. So the real insight here is that the intensity of an emotion, the difference between feeling a little concerned and being in an absolute panic, is a direct result of that firing density. It is literally the difference between a light drizzle and a torrential downpour inside your head. Okay, so we know how the neurons are talking, but where in the brain are these super important conversations actually happening? Well, let's meet two of the key players in this drama: the brain's primal alarm and its rational CEO. First up, you've got the amygdala. Now, you should think of it less as just a fear center and more like a super fast significance detector. It's the brain's alarm system. It's constantly scanning your environment, asking one question over and over. Is this good for me? Bad for me? Do I need to react right now? This is the source of that instant gut feeling, that immediate sense that something is important. And then you have the prefrontal cortex, or the PFC. This is the brain's CEO. It's the adult in the room. It gets that urgent panic alarm signal from the amygdala and it says, okay, hold on. Let's think about this for a second. Is this a real threat or are we maybe overreacting? The PFC provides that rational top-down control that lets us manage our impulses instead of just being slaves to them. But sometimes that alarm is just too loud. When we're under intense stress, the connection to our calm, rational CEO can get weak, almost like a bad phone signal. And in that moment, the amygdala just takes over. It triggers a fast, reflexive, and often totally overwhelming emotional response. This is what's famously called an amygdala hijacked, where our primal brain literally hijacks our rational one. Now, this electrical storm inside our heads isn't just pure chaos. It actually has a rhythm, a pulse that helps coordinate all this activity across the entire brain. And it has a chemical climate that gives each emotion its unique flavor. These rhythms are what we call brain waves, and different frequencies seem to do different emotional jobs. So for example, when you have a really powerful, vivid emotional memory, gamma waves are working to bind all the different sensory pieces of that memory together: the sight of a person's face, the sound of their voice, the feeling in your gut. This synchronization is what makes that memory feel so complete and so real. It's literally how the brain gets billions of individual neurons to all dance to the same beat. So while electricity gives us the raw speed of a feeling, neurochemicals are what provide the tone and the texture. These are chemical messengers that get released into the storm and they completely change the environment. They act kind of like a volume knob for all those electrical signals, amplifying some, quieting others, and really shaping the overall character of an emotion. And here are just three of the biggest names in the game. You've got dopamine, which is our reward driver pushing our motivation. You have serotonin, our mood stabilizer, keeping things on an even keel. And then there's oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which helps us feel trust and connection. It's the specific cocktail of these chemicals that gives each emotional storm its unique signature. Okay, so we've got electrical sparks, brain regions fighting for control, rhythmic pulses, and chemical flavors. But what's incredible is how all of this complex machinery works together to do something that, well, it basically turns our entire understanding of emotion completely on its head. So the classic view of emotion was that they're basically hardwired reactions. You see a bear, your fear circuit fires. Simple, right? But the new view is radically different. It says emotions are not reactions at all. They are active constructions. Your brain isn't just passively reacting to what's happening in the world. It is constantly, actively predicting.
This is the core of the theory of constructed emotion. It suggests that a physical sensation, like a racing heart, means absolutely nothing on its own. It's just data. Your brain takes that sensation, it looks at the context. Are you on a roller coaster or are you walking down a dark alley? And then it uses all of your past experiences to construct the most useful emotion for that specific moment, either excitement or fear.
And this happens in a continuous, never-ending loop. First, your brain makes a prediction, a best guess about what your bodily sensations mean. Then, it takes in the real-time data from your body and the world. It compares the two and calculates any difference, what scientists call prediction error. And then it either updates its prediction or, and this is the amazing part, it acts on the world to make its original prediction come true, like making you run away to reduce the threat that it predicted in the first place. This quote just perfectly captures this whole paradigm shift. Emotions aren't these passive things that just wash over us anymore. They're active, predictive tools that our brains are constantly creating to help us navigate the world more effectively. So, what does this all mean for us? If our brain is basically a forecaster, constantly predicting our emotional reality, well, it means we have a lot more influence than we thought. We can actually help change the forecast.
And this is all possible because of something called neural plasticity. Your brain isn't fixed hardware, it's living, adaptable tissue. I mean, think about what happens when you learn a new skill, like playing the piano or speaking another language. As you practice, you are physically rewiring your brain. You're forming new connections. Well, the exact same principle applies to your emotions. The pathways that build them are always under construction. And this right here is the most profound takeaway. Your emotional habits are not your destiny. By exposing yourself to new experiences, by learning new ideas, even just by learning to label your feelings with more accuracy, you are feeding your brain new data. You're updating the library of concepts it uses to make its predictions. And over time, you can actually change the very way you feel.
So the ultimate takeaway is really this. If emotions aren't just built-in reactions, but are actually constructed, moment by moment, from a lifetime of experience, that means emotion is a skill. And just like any other skill, it can be practiced and improved. Which brings us to our final question for you. How will you choose to practice?